when people get emotional and the stress is high, you're running to safety. You panic, hey, I'm gonna get safe. But there is something saying for too safe. That's why you gotta go back to that plan. Realize that, hey, follow the earnings. Like, we're rooting for Team USA to have a great 4 years.
Hello and welcome to Unf Your Finances podcast with your host, Nick St. George. I'm your podcast producer, RJ Malik. Nick, good to see you. What are we talking about on this podcast?
Well, it's the perfect week for it. We're filming it post-election, but we're going to talk about election. The best way I'm going to summarize this episode, it's something my clients have heard me say a lot of time. Don't root against the pilot. You get on a plane, you may not like what the pilot's wearing, where he went to school, whatever, but you don't root against that pilot and say, hey, let's crash. Every 4 years, I'm on Air Force One, Team USA, and hoping for the best, smoothest flight possible. I don't care if you vote red, blue, or Marvin the Martian. Like, we root for the pilot.
Love the Bugs Bunny reference. That's good.
Yes.
Marvin the Martian.
But we're not naming candidates. We're going to talk numbers. We got some slides here. We're going to talk historical. So, yes, you see some red and blue. It's just more of, I've done a short video recently talking about, hey, follow the earnings. Follow the yellow brick road, follow the earnings. Like, yes, a lot of headlines, a lot of policies kind of sound like my parenting. Like, I'm going to take this away. You're going to be grounded for a month. Like, what do you really do at the end of it? It's like enough to so that hopefully they don't do what they did wrong again. Like, promises and campaign promises are very big. But let's go through the hard numbers, talk strictly facts here. This is something like I'm hoping I can just record once and then we'll rehash it every 2 to 4 years just as a little refresher saying, hey, remember, these are the numbers. This is facts. These are the history. This is numbers. Numbers are supposed to be unemotional.
Okay. All right. Do you want to start the slideshow?
Sure. Let's jump in with that. Just the average returns.
Okay.
It's emotional, right? Everyone, you hear, you see the memes, the internet stays undefeated, but red, blue, whoever you voted for, whatever you think of your neighbor, markets done well. Average return under each party, both are in the double digits range, which is always fantastic. Who's going to say no to double digits? And then even the lagging return. Like, so think about it. If you hate whoever was elected this week, fine, but it takes a little while. They don't just magically flip the switch. It usually takes a year or two. And then in a year or two, typically this House or the Senate will end up changing. And then it's a ebb and flow. It's constant dealing and posturing. The only thing that I'm faster than is probably politics, getting things done. Like, I can probably beat them in a foot race, but other than that, like, it's going to take some time. They're not going to come out and change your day-to-day life is not changing tomorrow, a week from now, or even a month from now. More than likely, it's a lot of noise.
But it's consistent on both parties that in double digits that you're really not going to fare badly no matter who's in office, it seems like, at least according to this page.
Yeah, it's kind of like you go to the airport and you see the trash and recycling bin and they both end up in the same spot. Like, red, blue, it's still going to end up in the same spot. Like, you may not like either one of them. And every 4 years, maybe we'll get some better options, right? Let's see what happens. Like, you're always trying to get better. Last week I was on a webinar and they said one thing. They're like, hey, politicians come and go every 2 to 4 years, but businesses have to figure it out.
Right.
When you invest in the stock market, it's not the market. You're buying shares in companies that are designed to drive their processes, profit, like keep their costs down. They have to figure it out. They don't get reelected. Like, if you mess up your business, you're out of business. Think about 20 years ago, Blockbuster Video, like Kodak. There was names that, oh my God, you're always going to need Kodak. And it's like, who's really getting film these days, right? Like, that's part of S&P 500. The Dow recently added 2 stocks in, took 2 stocks out. If you're not doing what you're doing, the market kind of takes care of itself in that regards. So you got to just keep in mind of, just because one party, one way or the other, there are some down years. These are averages, right? Like, you see that. You might have a big year up 30, down 20. Averages aren't smooth. If it was a smooth line, people would never jump out of the market, but
right.
It does. Emotions are high. The downside of the world that we're in, it's down to the nanosecond. Every social media, text messages, like, the happiest moment about this is the ads are gone. Like, I'm sick of talking to my kids about the ads. They'll be watching, Bo's watching card show rips. Airlines watches makeup and they still got governor things. And it's just like, could you stop? And one of my favorite memes recently was talking about, oh, the ads are dumb, but Mariah Carey's coming out with All I Want for Christmas Is You. Like, it's like one thing after the other. But that's the worst part, is like, you can't really get away from it. You want to watch your football game or just TV in general, you're getting hammered over the head. You turn on the radio, it's there. You pull up your phone.
Yes.
Heck, you even go on like everyone's favorite shop, and the Amazon fairy comes to the house. You go on their landing page. There's stuff about, hey, we have election coverage. It's like, I'm over here trying to buy beef jerky. Like, I don't care about the election coverage.
Right.
Like, it's hard to take out your personal beliefs, the emotions that come with money and politics, when it's just beating you over the head nonstop. It really is 24/7. You get the text messages, hey, all this stuff. And it's just, it's a lot. I'm not saying it's easy by any means, but every 4 years, we're going to see this. And it's just like they talk about markets, like, hey, this is going to be the most intense, most important election since the last election. And it's the most important this since the last one. Like, I foresee this episode getting shared a lot every 2 to 4 years and being like, hey, remember, the math is here.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, I'm looking at this information and it really hits me that, and I've heard this from other financial advisors, slow and steady, it wins the race. If something happens, the last thing you want to do is make knee-jerk reactions to the stock market or to something else. You just want to stay steady and keep going, stay the course. And if you do, you're going to increase over time, right?
And I'm going to take a slight victory lap here, because I had a couple people call, hey, should we jump out? I'm a little worried about this. I'm concerned about this. And I did have my little tongue-in-cheek post yesterday on social, because when the results came out, the market reacted sharply. And I had heard from multiple clients, hey, my cousin's advisor said to do this, basically jumping into cash, trying to time the market, trying to be smarter than the market. And the market, if you miss a day like what happened this week, your returns are, so you don't make that up. Like, if you miss the top couple days of the year of returns, your returns for the annual, like, you're cutting them down. Like, there's some hard numbers on it, but you miss the 3 best days of the year, your returns are almost cut in half.
Wow.
And trying to play the hokey pokey, as much as the conception of market timing is amazing, if we avoid the down days and only get the up days, we're going to have a better outcome. But predicting the market consistently, getting in, getting out, perfectly timing, even if you have the most rational thought and your algorithm or whatever matrix you created to tell you when this, it always works until it doesn't. There's been multiple funds and hedge funds that think they have figured it out, and then an event happens and suddenly you're punched in the mouth. You missed a big day, you bet the wrong way. I've heard some other people, oh, we bought triple leverage of these ETFs because we thought this would happen with this outcome. Instead of sticking to your plan, saying, hey, we're on here, we're staying on track, we're looking good, it's been a good year in the market. I'm not too, I'm going to turn off the TV. I'll turn it back on for like the Grinch special in December and just see what happens. It goes back to the previous episode. Like, how often are you checking it? Like, if you're looking at this all the time, you're going to scare yourself into making it. But yes, I was teasing people. Hey, for those of you trying to market time, how'd this work out for you?
Okay. Do you want to go on to the next slide, or what do you got for us?
Yeah, let's hit the next one. Just talking like elections versus non-election years. Because, hey, if you take all years, you took out in the slide on the right there, it's talking about taking out 2002 and 2008, kind of those like black swan moments, if you will. 2008, like the financial crisis, 2002, there were some massive swings. If you exclude those, it kind of, you see how much they skew those numbers. That's 2%, if you will, on the blue and the goldish.
Right.
It doesn't have to be as awful as you think it is. The 2002, 2008, it was outside. It wasn't election stuff. It's financial crisis. It's dot-com bubble residual. There's stuff, but let's jump on to the next one. Here's your red and blue. Like, yes, down years happen. Look at that. Like, and heck, even some of the down years, everyone's got some, right?
Yeah.
It's, I don't care who's your fan. You see that, like, and even Bush 2.0, some of that's the financial crisis. That's not an like, you can't fix that. That was a global financial crisis. Like, that was, Is it a policy thing? Could he done something different? Who knows? But like some of those skews those are some ugly numbers. You have 9/11, you have financial crisis. We've had COVID. Like there's different things that happen. Like it's kind of hard to put on that bingo card, right? If you got in your car and knew you were getting into an accident, you probably try to get a helmet on and stuff, right? Like it's not just your normal, but it's predicting that.
Looking at this chart, though, there's more up than down by far.
Correct. It's somewhere roughly 75-80% of the time it's going to be an up year.
Okay.
Now, some people are like, oh, well, we've had 4 up years. We've got to have a down one. It's an average, right? We might go 8 and then have 2 in a row. It's a little bit skewed because averages doesn't mean absolutes. There's going to have some mix, some ebb and flow, and it's not always just there. And for the past, I'd say 18 months, there's been an economic indicator. You pick one data point and says, hey, we're due for a recession. Hey, the last time this index crossed this line, and it's predicted 12 of the last 4 recessions. It's like, all right, well, is it really that accurate? Oh, every Friday at 3:00, there's a thunderstorm until there isn't.
Right.
And some of these economic indicators just don't always happen. And a lot of the volatility doesn't have to do with who's in the White House. It's, hey, did they miss earnings? I don't know. You see some of the major airline manufacturers has a strike. Hey, we might have had a port strike. There's always, you can't pick one data point and just anchor everything onto that one point. Like it's just not, there's too many factors. Like it's tricky, right? Like it's overwhelming. That's why you try to talk to someone that can like cut through it. Hey, here's the 3 pros. Here's the 3 pro cons. Hey, history doesn't repeat itself, but it usually rhymes. And hey, we've kind of had some similar data points here, and here. This is what happened. The worst phrase you can ever tell yourself investing is this time is different. And saying, hey, this was the most important election. I'm so scared. It's different. And panic and run. And is that going to get you to where you want to go with your goals? But the next slide kind of shows this same one, just taken out. It kind of gives those numbers, right? Hey, we've seen down 4, down 18, but you have up 29, up 26. Those are big numbers. Now, these are S&P 500 numbers. So most investors, when they see these numbers, they expect their account to do the same. And that's where diversification comes into play. How much risk? This is the true roller coaster, right? Look at that. Down 37, up 26, up 15. Those are big swings. Most people need something smoother than the craziest roller coaster. And sometimes just investing in the overall stock market seems like it's the crazy roller coaster. So that's what we do when we build a plan. Hey, what do we need to average return?
Oh.
Now, if we have a higher return average, we need to take on more stock. That's going to give you bigger swings. If you want big returns, you got to know that you want to hit home runs, you're going to strike out. You're going for singles and doubles, you probably ground out. The losses are a little bit smoother. So that goes into some of this to make the smoother ride for you. It doesn't say it's not going to go down, but it won't go down, hey, woo, like.
Right.
I'm not saying we need to go sit on the kiddie rides, but do you need your life savings swinging around 25, 30% at a time? So that diversification can kind of smooth it out, buffer it. Hey, we're going to buy some bonds. We're not going to just have the US. Like there's different areas. And the book reference of it is, hey, you're going to have non-correlated assets. Something over the last 10 years, the finance books, you want to have some uncorrelated, as in when this one goes up, this one goes down. And when that one goes down, this one goes up. Last couple of years, we've really seen that down 18, the 2022 year, bonds and stocks were down. Bond index was down double digits. S&P was down double digits. Like the only thing that didn't lose money that year was like the coffee can, but with inflation at 9-10%, your buying power, like we talked about this leading into it. You go to the grocery store, that's inflation. That's the true inflation number. A lot of things they talk about, inflation, it's the industrial price of packaging and this, that, and the other. Did the webinar last week and they talked about the working man CPI. And that includes, it's basically food, energy, and healthcare.
Yeah.
And housing. I think that's the 4 of it. I could be wrong on the index, but that's basically, hey, where do you spend your most money? Your residence.
Yeah.
food. And even though I'm fat, so I probably spend a little more on food, but like healthcare, that's not going away.
No.
And that's been up. And how do you keep up with that? If you've put your money and you said, hey, I made 4 or 5% in a CD or something, this is great, it's safe, I can sleep at night. But if well, just keep the math simple. If you're at 5% on your CD and inflation was 10, your ability to buy the same things went down by 5%.
Right.
And that goes back to that real return. And like that's a hypothetical example. Like, but you can start doing the math. Like, there is something of being too safe. And a lot of times when people get emotional and the stress is high, you running to safety. You panic, hey, let me get safe. But there is something saying for too safe. That's why you got to go back to that plan, realize that, hey, follow the earnings. Like, we're rooting for Team USA to have a great 4 years.
And doesn't the plan, can you adjust the plan, not change it, but adjust the plan as you age?
Of course. That's why you do those reviews and semi-annual reviews. My last week email reminded people, hey, we planned for this. That was a theme. Like, we don't expect it to just average, boom, straight, like the perfect metronome. We're going to have some really good years. We're going to have some down years. But in the plan, just because we've had a moment or you're getting emotional doesn't mean we're not changing. Like, we're not going to go jump out of a plane when we hit turbulence. Hey, we might put our seatbelt on, right? What's changed with you? Did you switch jobs? Did you have a health issue? That's why the plan is a living document. If you just do one plan one time and run away, it's useless. It's going to be adaptable. You're going to be able to get into it. You have to be able to take some time to make sure it's right. That goes back to, we talked to earlier episodes about communication, right? If I don't know what's going on, if I reach out and check in with you, talking about year-end reviews now, if you don't want to give information, it's hard to give good advice. But if we have open dialogue and we are communicating and we're talking about this as math and not opinion and just listen to the talking heads on TV, think about it. The guys on TV are trying to sell commercials, their books, their everything else. I'm trying to get you to your deepest, most important financial goals. Like, trust me, I want you to have the greatest retirement ever, least amount of stress. I make more when the markets are up, right? We're on the same side of the table. The bigger your account is, the more money I make. The less your account is, the least amount of money I make. So typically when the markets are down, I'm working harder and answering more questions and more calls, and I'm making less. Versus when the market rips and goes up, I'm making more, and everyone's like, oh, Nick's awesome. Like they're like, calm seas hides all faults. But
right. But you're right about, people on TV, radio, and things like that. I'm been in the media for decades, and our job is to get ears and eyes. That's what we are supposed to do. Yes, we're supposed to give out the right information. You don't give out wrong information, but you are looking to gather as many eyes and ears as possible. So you can paint a picture a little bit different to get that goal. I'm not saying we would lie, but I'm saying we're going to lean towards what's going to get us the most eyes and ears.
Yes. And if it bleeds, it leads. The crazier the statement, the nastier it is, the more likely that's going to be the lead-in clip or the headline of...
It's going on the air.
Correct. That one's going to make it.
You hit it on the head. If I saw that, if I look at something when I was on the air every day, if I saw a story that struck me, the very next day I'm talking about it on the radio. So,
and it goes back to the phones. You scroll on your phone, you see the headline and maybe like a sentence blurb.
Yes.
More often than not, you don't click on it. Like, my mom is notorious. Oh, I saw this. What does that mean? I'm like, did you click on it? No, but I saw the headline. That sounds awful. I'm like, and you fell for it, right? Like but most people don't have the time. We have that social media, like, hey, we're just scrolling. Attention span is like bull riding. It's 7 seconds or less. Like, is it going to really, nobody really wants to read it. They just, oh, I saw the headline. I'm like, I got to go back and look at that. What does that really mean?
And that influences how we in the media present information, because we know attention span is short. So you have to do something to grab someone's attention.
But let's jump on that next one, just showing think about it. You look at this chart, like, yes, if this is at my old firm's office, I used to have a kind of bigger chart on the wall. And from the door to the wall, it looked like it went straight up. Now, this chart from a distance looks like it goes straight up. But the closer you get, think about day by day, week by week, and even month by month, stock market's nuts. But you take a step back and say, hey, we got 5 years of time. 5 years looks pretty good on most of these time frames. It looks a lot smoother than it is. It feels like an absolute dumpster fire day to day. But when you take a step back, look at this. Back basically since, what is this, 1940 FDR time, Truman, Eisenhower. Like, you start naming out names that are on money. This is not what you think of now. And even you look, Obama, Trump, Biden, looks like it's a smooth upward trend, but was it smooth? It wasn't. And
right.
You jump to the next one because I want to hit on this. It's kind of similar chart, but this kind of shows some of those recessions. So that faint grayish blue show where recessions are.
Ah, okay.
And sometimes could it be a policy thing? Absolutely. But like, it's not a perfect science. Sometimes the market still can go up and survive. Like the last one we really saw was the COVID shutdown. You see that, and look at that. You can kind of, if you pinch your phone and look at it right now, yes, you'll see how it went straight down. That was a quick one. Whereas you see like the financial crisis, that's a pretty long. That one hurt. That was deep. That was long. That was not fun. But then what happens with this is that people say, hey, historically when we see these recessions, this happens. And a lot of people try to, around elections, to pick sectors, saying, 60% of the time it works every time. Like, this sector is the answer. And it's more of, you got to stick to your plan. Like, you can't go cherry picking. Don't go after it. And a lot of these things go back in the late 90s. Was it all who's in the White House? No, there was a lot of different things going on there. Like, there's never one data point. Now, no different than the quarterback on the football team to the president in the White House. They get a lot of credit when it's good, and they get a lot of blame when it's bad. Now, it's a team sport. You got a House, Senate, you have different parts of the government, but it's earnings. What are we seeing for innovation? Think about right now what we're seeing with like AI and like right now, this is like the new internet boom. Like, what can we do with AI? What is it really going to be like? Now, do I know? But whoever's in the White House for the next 4 years might get some of the economic benefits of that. Did they do anything to deserve credit for that?
No.
And then there's always wild cards. Like, go back to 2000. Like, I remember when I started college, like 9/11, and you see the wars. Like, there are wild cards, once again, that the markets react to, that whoever's in the White House it's not their one way or the other. So you might want to put blame one way or the other, and that's fine. But you got to look at the math, follow the earnings, economic indicators. You start going to see these reports for 2025. And once again, I hear 25 and I still think we should be the Jetsons, but earnings are up for most of the Fortune 500 companies. Like, they're showing earnings growth. Their cost of goods has gone up, but their price point to sell them have also gone up. So you see this. And yes, is there a disaster du jour? There's always what was it? That first Men in Black movie. And this is probably 25 years ago now at this point.
Yeah,
maybe like more. Now I feel old. But the first time they were talking to Will Smith, is like, oh my God, they're about to blow up the world. And Tommy Lee's like, hey, there's always something going to blow up the world. And it's kind of like that in the news cycle. There's always some reason to not invest, to be scared, to be worried. There's always going to be some type of monster underneath the bed. If you only invest when your party is in charge, your returns are like next to nothing. Because you miss good years. Look, I don't care if you're red or blue, but if you look at and say, hey, I skipped out on red years only, I only want blue, or you vice versa, look at what you're missing out on. Going to cash for 4 or 8 years and missing out that. Not many people have enough money saved to be able to invest that way. You need more longer term growth, and letting whatever color is in the White House dictate what you do investment wise. You're not going to be happy. You're going to underperform. You're probably not going to get where you're at. And hey, if you've saved enough money that you're way ahead of goal and it will take you 150 years to spend through all your money you save. All right, fine. You want to take some money off the table, you're ahead of goal. But the average person needs to save more, needs return on their money, and they can't just play the hokey pokey and jump out depending on who's running the country for the next 4 years.
Okay, very good.
It's one of those things. It's how I've been talking to my kids about it, because you get questions, right? You get stuff on TV. I don't know if you want to take down the slide and just show you and I and my beautiful face. I do have the face for a podcast and not video, but no, they get questions because they get these targeted ads on YouTube and it's on the TV, and it's just like, hey, be nice to each other. Like, you should be able to have a conversation with somebody and hear both sides of the coin. Just because you don't agree with somebody doesn't mean you can't talk to them. Let's hear a different perspective. You don't want to be in an echo chamber. My daughter said somebody came and they wanted one of the candidates to die. And it's just like, what is going on at that house? Like, hey,
yeah,
I give them that analogy. I'm going to stand by it. I truly believe in this. You root for the pilot. You don't root against the pilot, right? We were on Team USA. And that's the thing, like, your elections, vote. The number one thing is go vote. Like, if you can't complain if you don't take the time to go vote. Here in North Carolina, there's early voting. I think it's like 3 weeks in advance you can start going in. Go vote. That's your number one way, your civic duty, to express what you want. And more often than not, your state and local elections, like, hey, what's your county commissioners, your school board, your governor, is going to have a bigger impact on your day-to-day life than the national elections. Now, the national elections get the most money, so you get the more ads, but we're rooting, hey, we're going to do the best thing possible. And I'm probably a little different, that I don't have like a set party. Like, give me a good candidate. Like, I want the one that has, who's going to be best. Like, it's not a Valentine. It's more of, hey, what do you think who's going to be the best pilot for the next 4 years? Both of them, I want them to work, but who might be a little bit better?
I was going to say, in your position, you may have your personal preferences and things like that, but after the election, you immediately go to work to see, okay, how is this person going to govern, and how do I do what's best for my clients?
Absolutely. I think the best thing that came out of this past election this week is that we knew more or less that night. My biggest fear was, I was on a meeting a week or two, and they were throwing out, hey, whoever wins this election has the best legal team. And that would be the absolute worst case scenario. Like, we wanted no hanging chads. Like, I was high school years. I remember those.
I remember those.
Couldn't really process it as well as I do now. But like, it was nice to have certainty. All right, hey, this is what's going on. We know roughly, give or take, but at least we have certainty. This is what's going to be going on. Stock markets, and people like to be able to model. If you're a business owner, hey, what will your corporate tax rate going to be? That was one of the things that people kind of were looking at, depending on which way it goes. And that's going to affect their budgets for 2025. Should we be hiring? Should we be shifting it one way or the other? Clarity helps. Once you know, hey, this is what we're getting. Once again, don't care if you like him one way or another, like her, him, whatever. But you know what? Hey, this is, we can start modeling for this. And 2022, most people were, hey, we're looking at this. The market was down because they never modeled for 5% in rate hikes in a year.
Okay.
And so if you have stuff that you can at least look back on and say, hey, this is what we think might happen with certainty. There's no legal, there's no lawsuits. Everyone already gave their phone calls and concessions. Like, it's on to the next chapter. And there's going to be other disasters. There's going to be other stuff. Like, don't get me wrong. We're not through the thick of it yet, right? There's still some issues. Inflation's still an issue. Like, just going to the grocery store. How does the average family keep up with their spending, right? It's hard to feed the kids. Like, Bo's hitting that growth spurt. Like, kids a human garbage disposal at times. And and I don't know, I still remember when I first got my license, I could get $20, got me a 20-ounce soda and a tank of gas. Now that's like, I'm like, why would I only put $20 in my tank? Like, it's not even worth stopping if I only need $20 worth of gas.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And even a couple of years ago, like, you go to, kids love Chick-fil-A. We have 4 orders of Chick-fil-A, you're north of $50. And that's through a drive-through. It's not even.
Yeah.
And you get the tipping. That was probably one of my favorite election memes. It shows, as soon as you submit your election, it's like asking a couple questions and saying, "Hey, would you like to tip on your your ballot?" Like it was kind of making the funny. Remember when you ever swipe your card and they're like, "Hey, it's going to ask you a question," and just slide.
Yeah.
But it's there's a lot of different things out there. But truly, like, be nice to each other, have a conversation. I think it's a good thing to listen. Like one of my favorite podcasts is All In, and you get a couple guys left, a couple guys right. I don't want to hear everyone's perspective that sounds just like me. I want to hear the other side, hear their argument, hear their points. Like there's something to said for hearing both sides.
Yeah, you can learn. You can learn. All right, Nick, we're running up against the clock. So can you remind people where they can find you?
All right. You can always get me on the website, stgeorgewealth.com. Email is nick@stgeorgewealth.com. My phone number is 828-481-8836. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And there's always the calendar. Anytime, if you're even on the fence on that online calendar thing, book and ask me anything. There's no cost. There's no hook on it. Like I've said before, I'll say it again. I'd rather you book the appointment. We talk for 10, 15 minutes than you go on some rabbit hole on Google trying to figure out the answer to your question. Let's have a conversation and find out what's going on with you and how everything works. Everyone's relationship with money and everything is different.
Very good. All right. Looking forward to your next podcast, and thank you for listening to today's Unf Your Finances podcast. Please like, follow, and share this podcast with friends and family. Until the next Unf Your Finances podcast, I'm RJ Malik.
Thank you for listening to the Unf Your Finances podcast. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at www.stgeorgewealth.com or give us a call at 828-481-8836. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of St. George Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC.
Any guests in their company or companies are not affiliated or endorsed by LPL Financial unless otherwise stated. Individual tax and legal matters should be discussed with your tax or legal professional. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to affect some of the strategies. Investing involves risks, including possible loss of principal.